Well, we're not too far away from the first game of the first round. That, of course, is going to take place in Las Vegas for the second year in a row. The very first game will involve the Canberra Raiders. And as we like to do on a Wednesday with our CEO Wednesday, I'm happy to say that the CEO of the Raiders, Don Furner, is on the line. G'day, Don.
Good morning, Jimmy. Thanks for having me on.
Absolute pleasure, mate. How are things going? How's preparations looking
Re-
for Las Vegas?
Really, really good. We had our season launch last week. We've got two trials out of the road now. Players were obviously a bit nervous. They wanted to get through the trials and get enough minutes in their legs, but they also didn't want to get injured for Vegas because after that game, Rick had to pick the 23 that are travelling. So, yeah, they all got through, and they're all very excited about it. They saw how much publicity and how great it was last year, and after last year's, they were all coming up to me saying, well, could we go? Do you reckon we could get a game over there? So we're really pleased to get the game, and yeah, they're all looking forward to it.
It's a Raiders home game too, which I'll get to shortly. But in your mind, Don, what are the benefits of going to Vegas, and what are the challenges that come with going to Vegas?
I'll start with the challenges, Jimmy. There's a lot of travel, and we've actually got a lot of travel. If you look at the first 10 games, we go Darwin, Townsville, Gold Coast, Auckland, back to Brisbane in the first 12 rounds. So this plus Vegas was a lot of travel.
Yeah.
So travel and the logistics is big. The pluses, mate. We're not a massive club, but for us to get that exposure, we're never the first game of the year, right? We haven't been for a long, long time. So for us to get the kickoffs of the season, it's a game that rates almost as highly as an Origin game. And I saw it last year how good it was. So for our fans, there's a lot of Canberrans going. For our brand, our sponsors, and just for the experience for the players, it'll probably never happen again. And what dawned on me last year at the game is that here we are in the sporting capital of the world, the entertainment capital of the world, and people are walking through Los Angeles and Las Vegas airport with NRL jerseys on. It was really good to see, and to go into that stadium and go, wow, the Super Bowl was played here a couple of weeks ago, which happened last year. It was quite amazing. So I came back and spoke to Rick and the players, and yeah, they were all keen to go, and thankfully our submission got through.
I was going to touch on that a little bit later, but you've sort of brought up elements of that I'll go to that now. And I'm just looking at the Raiders and your finishing position. Obviously, grand final in 2019, and then good year in 2020, and then 10th, 8th, 8th, 9th over the last
Mhm.
5 years. Home crowds are flat, but they're low relative to other clubs. How do the Canberra Raiders grow, Don?
Look, we have to go country. We're the only inland city and team, I should say. So we always try and look outwards now to that Riverina area. Um, and it's hard competing in sport in that area. The Brumbies are struggling financially. The soccer teams in Canberra are struggling. So we've got a good catchment of juniors. We've got a really good batch of juniors coming through. Our ball and flag led the comps last year. Reserve grade flag led the comps last year. We've always had good juniors. But it is hard to keep them away from the bright lights of Sydney and Brisbane, and we've got to put, I guess, other things around them that they want to stay there. We've got a good batch of kids now, Jimmy, that we think if we keep them together, doesn't always mean it's going to work. If we keep them together, we'll have a good couple of years. Everyone's written us off, which we're happy about. It happens that way, and we seem to play better when we're written off. Because we have got an inexperienced spine. And yeah, you're right. We have been eighth, ninth, 10th, there and thereabouts. And the comp's so close now, it's one game here or one. And usually, as you know, those big teams have got a superstar that does something special. Um, and we think we're developing a few, but certainly we haven't got the superstars that the Clearys and the Turner Game or Munsters and all that. But we've got a good batch, and we think that we can get them to there, and they'll be the ones that turn those close games, like the Lorries and the Rickies and the Meningas and all that did in the past. You need those one or two special players because the comp is so close, and most teams are so close. There was a lot from fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th. There was one match between those teams. So we just got to be a little bit better and win those closer ones.
At this point, I better get a stadium update for the
Well,
stadium. Sorry to
mate,
bring it up,
it's
Don.
very, very frustrating. It's
Right.
politics. It's not played well. And you asked about growing. For us, we built a centre of excellence a couple of years ago. It was fantastic. Our next growth phase has to be a new stadium. It's just And I say to the government, and you go to sponsors, and the sponsors go down and watch a game at Combank, or they go down to watch a game at Allianz,
Yeah.
or those that we're taking over will go to Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, and you go, wow, this is the experience now. This is what fans want. And, GIO Stadium's 50 years old. For us to keep pace, and it's just it's not fit for purpose anymore. And it's sad because we're the nation's capital. We should have a new stadium and a good stadium. So we keep punching away, but stadiums are expensive and governments are reluctant to commit to them. Well, our government is, but yeah, it's tough. We need one, we deserve one, and the other sports and entertainment would come to Canberra then. Normally kids in Canberra want to go to a concert, they've got to go to Sydney or Melbourne, to see a concert. But if they had a closed stadium, you'd get the concerts there. But anyway, um, roundabout way of saying is we're still a way away.
Okay, I can't imagine Christchurch being any bigger than Canberra, and they're about to unveil an incredible stadium with a roof on it, and get all those benefits that they'll have. At least one tenant there in the Super Rugby. You'd have at least two anchor tenants, probably more.
Jimmy, we did a big tour of there. We played the Warriors there in
Right.
Christchurch last year. We went on a tour of that stadium, right back to our government, said, here is a city that endured an earthquake.
Yep.
They were broke. They had population leaving. It's half the population of Canberra anyway.
Yep.
And they decided and voted that they needed a centrepiece that would attract concerts, the All Blacks, a host team. Amazing story, amazing stadium. We used that again as a submission to say if they could afford it, surely we can, with federal and government and ACT government money, but not to be at this stage. But yeah, it's going to be a great story for them. And we've actually said to our government, well, we'll take games away. We'll have to take a game there. We'll play the Warriors there. We'll play a Queensland team in Queensland because it's virtually not fit for purpose. So it's frustrating, but we've just got to keep working on it.
You mentioned the players in your team and the leaders. Jamal Fogarty has a mutual option that the Raiders have up until round 6, I believe, until they exercise. What's the situation around Jamal, who has been in the 3 years that he's been at the Raiders, been one of your really good players?
Great player and a great person. And look, I'd like to see him. I'm pretty sure he'll be at our club in 26. It's one of those funny options. He can take it up at a certain amount of money, or we can take it up at a certain amount of money. He did suffer some injuries in these first 2 years down here, but he's definitely a leader. We'll get Vegas and a couple of games out of the road. And like a lot of these options, that's give and take. So we'll sit down when the time is right, but I would not like to see him at another club. He's terrific at our club.
Okay, so if a Raiders fans listen to this, more likely than not that Jamal Fogarty will be extending his time.
I'd like to think so. Yes, I'd like to think so because we need his leadership. We've got young halves and a young spine, so we'll just get a couple of weeks out of the road and then sit down there.
When you do actually go to Vegas, I think is it Thursday or Friday? Friday there's a
Thursday the team. And we've got sponsors and staff going 2 days after that.
Okay. I believe that the Australian Rugby League Commission are going to be briefing CEOs on Friday.
Yep.
Will you get any further transparency? We had the annual reports been leaked and we got some top line figures coming out of that yesterday. But do you have any understanding of what the costs associated with Vegas are, what the revenues are, and when break even might take place, Don?
That's a very good question. We do ask that ourselves, the CEOs. It's costly, no doubt. I have a bit of a summation in my head about what it would cost because I see what our costs are, like to take over our sponsors and our team and stuff. So, and there's 4 games on this year, so It is expensive. It's an expensive place to go. But no, I haven't had eyesight over the ins and outs. But I back Peter and Andrew. It's a big leap of faith to do it. Even just on the publicity alone, I think if you then factored that into the actual financials, I think, they're safely break even. But the long-term plan being the game's exposure, the game's growth, and maybe sports betting down the track. But I don't know. But, the game is in a good shape. We, the clubs who always agitate for more money, have got a bigger check than we've ever had. So it allows us, and, you've been in club land, people forget. You've got State Cup, Flegg, Ball, Matthews. We've got Laurie Daly, Andrew Johns teams playing in the country carnivals, and we've got women's teams. We've got nine, 10 teams, and all that costs a lot of money. So that the money that we get from the NRL, the grant, helps all those clubs, all us clubs, to put those development pathways in. And they are the elite development pathways that kids want. The kids want to associate with the Raiders or Penrith or Para. They want to wear that top. So there's a lot of other development going on, but clubs do the elite stuff the best, and it does cost a lot. So that's why the growth of the game is important. But they have done very well, Andrew and Peter.
Yeah, there was a quote from an anonymous CEO that was gushing in praise, and we sort of thought, well, if you're a club and you're not happy now, you're going to be very hard to please given what has transpired. I guess the surety knowing that there is club representation when it comes to things like broadcast deals. We've talked about it a lot on this program already. Peter V'landys has signalled the fact that at some stage during the course of this year he wants to sit down with broadcasters. Are you comfortable with what's happening from a league-wide perspective about how the game is continuing to grow across their broadcast partners?
Definitely. You can't, I mean, that's where the money has come from that has flowed back to us. The ratings are so good. So definitely put my faith in Peter and Andrew for that. And, the way we're going and the way we're rating, and there's other sports that are dropping away, and there's really two big sports in Australia now that dominate on TV. And, I can't wait for the next broadcast deal. It could be an Apple, it could be a Netflix, who knows the way it's going.
Yep.
So that's also part of the learnings from the NRL when they travel to America to see how the NFL do it. They split all things up. So very confident that head office will get us a good deal.
Middle of last year, the great Mal Meninga returned to the Canberra Raiders. He's been a regular on this program on a Thursday for the last couple of years. And I think during the course of that time, I certainly and listeners have been able to understand what it is that makes Mal Meninga so special. What's Mal brought to his time at the Raiders now that he's back working with the team?
He's there once a week. I saw him yesterday. He's coming to America with us. Rick speaks to him a lot, and Mal gets around to speak to a lot of clubs and a lot of people. So, we get the benefit of that because he's got him in the Australian side. His presence, he has been with us before many times, but he was living in Queensland at the time. He's moved back to Canberra. It just made sense for us. It didn't make sense for us not to use his wealth of knowledge. He's fantastic for us on Fox. He's great with sponsors, but, we look at a couple of Queensland players, we bounce it off Mal. Rick rings Mal up and says, what do you think of player A or player B? And it's just an extra voice that Rick needs. And Mal's experience with dealing with, the top echelon of players helps us too. So, yeah, he'll hopefully be with us for a long time. He's packing his bags this week to come to Vegas with us. So he's doing some PD over there, and then he'll be in with the team. But he said he'd be at training at least once a week, and
Yeah.
He lives not far from us. So he's our only ever immortal and made the best ever team. And he's the best player the club's ever had, and we're lucky to still have him.
I can't help but think Mal had, and he didn't say explicitly, but you talked to him last year, and Corey Horsburgh is one of these players that is a state of origin player, had some issues there, and then came back and played well in the last game of the year. Now you look at him; he's almost unrecognisable. Don, you can just see, and I can't help but think Mal Meninga's fingerprints were all over that situation.
Definitely. Coaching is so hard. Keeping 30, 40, 50 people happy is so hard. And for Rick to have someone like him there, it's go and have a coffee with Mal. It just takes the pressure off the head coach. And he's well respected, certainly by everybody, but by Queenslanders even more so. So, it's not the first time coaches and players disagree. And it's just good for Rick to have him there. To hear his side of it, So yeah, I mean, we're so glad Corey stayed. We didn't want to lose him, but I'm sure there'll be others come that have issues in the going forward, and to have Mal there is definitely invaluable in those instances. And people don't see that, and you've picked it up because you know footy. But yeah, it's really easy to say, Mal, can you take him for a coffee?
Yeah, I think Jamal Fogarty's a Queenslander too.
He is.
That's it. Now, I know you as Don Furner. I'm presuming it's Donald is your full name. Does Donald Furner have any pull with Donald Trump?
Well, I'll tell you something interesting, Jimmy. My name is actually Donald John, and as my wife tells me, Donald Trump is Donald John Trump. So I've got Donald John there. Maybe, maybe he's checking the visa passport list and sees Donald John coming. But no, Peter V'landys is on that one. We're working really hard on some others to blow the Viking horn, and we're waiting to hear back on a couple of big names, and we haven't secured them yet. But my gosh, if he went to the game and was to play the Viking, well, that would be amazing. But we're working on some others, and we'll reveal it on the day. But it isn't foreign to Americans. They have the Minnesota Vikings do it. If you look online, they have a big horn and they start their games. So it's not foreign. In fact, we copied one of the American teams. So yeah, we'll get a big celebrity to start the game off and start the season off actually.
Tom Brady was the name that I heard. That was,
Well, there was never confirmation he was going to the game. We weren't sure, and we did go through Steve Crawley and the NRL at Fox because he is the Fox commentator over there.
Yep.
We didn't hear back. I did notice during the Super Bowl he wasn't even at the Super Bowl. He did it from the studio, so we had no confirmation he was going to be at the game. But yeah, he would have been sensational. But we've got some other big names, so we'll see how we go.
Johnny, it's exciting times, as you say. Great to have you on the program. Really appreciate your time. And we wish you all the very best, not just with Vegas, but with season 2025.
Thanks, as always. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for the support, Jimmy.
Thanks for watching. For more great content, subscribe to SEN League, your home of the greatest game of all.